Hey guys, Helen Hartsmith here again from the Heart of the Witch's Path YouTube channel. Hope you're having a good day. As you can tell, we are set up here to do another video in the series of tarot talks. And yes, we're going to be covering the Empress cards today. This would be the number 3 card in the Major Arcana. And let's just kind of take a moment really quick to review which decks we are comparing and contrasting. So in the middle here, we have the Empress card from the Rider-Waite deck. Here we have the Empress card from the Night Sun Tarot. And finally, here we have the Empress card from the Steampunk Tarot. And I've kind of talked about each of these decks in the previous videos, so I don't want to get too much into the individualized decks and information about them. I will have links in the description box for going to Amazon in case you wanted to purchase any one of these. Okay, so the Empress. What does the Empress mean for me personally as a reader? I link the Empress with a complete the power and everything that goes along with, you know, femininity. You know, we talked about the High Priestess in the last video, and I think there's a great deal of carryover in that feminine power into this particular card. So that is, you know, and as we get into it and talk more about this particular card, there's a lot more to it. But let's kind of get in there a little bit, shall we? And let's start really looking at details on this Rider-Waite card, okay? Alrighty, so here we are zoomed in on the Rider-Waite Empress and the Steampunk Tarot Empress. But I want to start talking about what we're seeing here in the Rider-Waite card first. Of course, the first thing, you know, right there first and foremost, we have our beautiful female figure. I love the detail that went into this drawing that shows beautiful flower work on the dress. I love the tree in the background here that seems to stand out a lot differently than these other trees that are kind of making up this landscape or whatever behind it. This makes me think of an oak tree for some reason. Not entirely sure why. She's holding a scepter. She has a beautiful starry crown that I'm loving, and those are some 6-pointed stars in that crown. She is very much at her ease. She is lounging back. She has this beautiful settee with a beautiful, lovely plump pillow that she's resting back upon. We have a flower, we have a heart here with the Venus symbol, which of course is the a kind of traditional feminine sign in that Venus. We have wheat, what appears to be wheat, in the bottom of the card here. And so that lends itself to abundance thinking for me, that, you know, you have enough to feed yourself. There's enough wheat there, kind of a thing. Very much, oh, and look, water. There's a source of water here. That just kind of bounced out at me. I like this card. This card gives me a happy feeling. So, you know, there we go. So let's kind of shift our attention, if you will, to the Steampunk card. The first thing that completely jumps out at me is that we're seeing the Empress in a reclining pose, much like we see in the Rider-Waite Empress. I'm struck by color similarities. I'm struck by the reds that we see in both of these cards. I'm struck by the pillow that we have down here in the bottom that again has this Venus symbol here. I'm intrigued by the power that is coming out of her hand here, her left hand. It's kind of reminiscent of the sparkly, starry bits of the crown in the Rider-Waite deck. But again, very much a power symbol here. And this, of course, kind of lends itself to a magical power, which I like. Very much richness in the background here. It looks like we've got a table here. It looks like there's definitely some dark, rich coloring here, and the materials look very luxurious. This looks silky, satiny. Her dress does. The settee that she's lounging on looks like it could be, you know, velvet or something of that nature. And another detail that I absolutely loved that was similar between the two is if you look behind her head here, there is a round pillow that her head is resting on that is very, very similar to the round pillow that we see here on this Empress's settee. And I loved that. I loved that there was that commonality. We also have what I thought was interesting. We have this clock on the wall that has the crescent moon represented, and it also has the sun represented at the 3 and 9 position respectively. I thought that was interesting and not something that I saw a reference to that stood out here. So in general, I see a lot of similarities, especially the crown too. I want to point out that it's not as large on this steampunk card, but we definitely have crowns on both of these empresses, which is important if you're representing an empress, I guess, right? So, yes, very much some good similarities here as far as what the cards are depicting. So now let's kind of shift over and compare the Rider-Waite card to the Night Sun, okay? And here we are with the Night Sun. We were talking last about the crowns. And so we do see that there is a crown that is on this Empress's head as well. But what I think is interesting is that hers almost looks more like a crown of thorns, what you would normally see represented when the crown of thorns that sticks out to me would be the crown of thorns that Jesus wore during his crucifixion, which I think is interesting, and not sure what point that might be making. I think in general, though, if you look at the details on this particular card, there are a lot more references to nature on this particular card than what you would see in the steampunk. The steampunk card was very much, you know, an inside setting. And then this card is, again, this is an outdoors setting. So I feel like that ties these two particular cards together. There's lilies here. There's I don't know exactly what this little flower is here, but it looks like it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 5-petaled flower, and it's kind of red in color. But there is like another lily-looking flower here. So, you know, I think of the nature representation as being a tie-in together. This is definitely inside. This is another inside card, but there's bits of nature here that make me think these two, or that brings these two together. I think it's interesting that here we have, again, she's got a scepter, just like this Empress does, that we didn't see in the Steampunk card. But what's interesting here is that if you look at the top, this very much looks, what do I want to say? It looks like a typical scepter in that you've got a cross on the top and then you've got the orb. And those are things that are kind of, you know, you see across the board as far as scepters go. But I think what's interesting is that for me, this looks like an upside down Venus symbol. Now, the Venus symbol also appears up here, but that's because that's, you know, it's sharing that this is the planetary symbol that kind of goes with this card, where the other ones are the other two cards are a little bit, I don't know if subtle is like a great word, but they've worked it into the actual depiction of the card, where this has it here. But I like this as a subtle depiction of that Venus symbol as well. Moving on, again, we have the redness in the clothing that happened in the other two cards as well. I think it's interesting to point out that there is an egg, it's broken open egg shells on the skirt of this Empress. This Empress is in a pose that is a little different from the other two. The other two, like this one, they're definitely in a relaxed position. And this one, but yet this one seems very much regal still. And even when you look at the Steampunk card, that Empress is in a relaxed pose as well. But there's definitely still power and regalness in the way that she is sitting comfortably. This card, however, with the entire bottom of this leg and knee visible, this lends a little bit more, oh gosh, I don't even know what word I'm thinking of on this, and I apologize for that. But this is definitely an even more relaxed position than what we see here. There's no shoe. She's not wearing a shoe on that leg. She's very much taking a minute, and what that minute means for this card seems a little bit different than what does that minute mean for this card. I'm not really sure entirely what I'm thinking about in there, but there's definitely something there, and I apologize that I'm not expressing my thoughts very well, but I'm trying to do these as I'm not planning a lot in these particular videos because I want you to get my fresh perspective and such. I just find it interesting that her pose is a much different relaxed position than the other two. Let's just leave it at that. There does seem to be some kind of cage, like some kind of bird cage or something like that, but it's in there's in shadow, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. And then she's sitting in a chair, and we have, I think this must be some kind of a banner or something, this green cloth that is behind her that actually has, I'm going to call them angel wings, that are depicted upon that cloth, which I think is interesting. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a representation of giving this Empress some angelic type power or attributes. Not entirely sure. But yeah, there's definitely some interesting imagery. I was really hoping to find that little circular pillow in this card, and I looked for it, and I realized that while there isn't, you know, exactly a round pillow like this, I do see some round detail work on the chair, because she's sitting in like an easy chair. So I feel like that is very much similar to the pillow that we see here. And so I'm going to kind of, you know, take that as a similarity. Now, what it represents, I mean, for me, roundness, especially when you look at femininity, there's definitely, you know, a roundness of belly that folks talk about when a woman is pregnant. I don't want to talk about that too much until we look at the actual meanings of these particular cards. So let's kind of pull out and let's talk about the meanings of each one of these cards, okay? So I'm going to begin by talking, and I've got the actual books here. Let's talk about the meanings that come in the books. Just a reminder that Rider-Waite is the only deck of the three of these that actually has separate meanings for the upright and reversed, and so I'll talk about both of those in their turn. But the Empress upright, the meaning is fruitfulness, action, initiative, length of days, clandestine, also difficulty, doubt, and ignorance. Now, when you look at the reversed, you're looking at light, truth, the unraveling of involved matters, public rejoicings, and vacillation. Okay, so that would be the meaning for the Rider-Waite card. Let's look at the meaning for the Night Sun. Sorry, I'm trying to like juggle things and talk at the same time. Not doing a great job. So this card is about creativity, intuition, seduction, happiness, idealism, nature, adolescence, abundance, turmoil, inexperience, maliciousness, and presumption. I think it's interesting. Let's just kind of start talking about these two. I think it's interesting that seduction was specifically named for the Night Sun, and maybe that is, you know what? That kind of is making a little bit of sense. Remember how I couldn't really formulate like what I was thinking about her pose in this card? This is very much a woman who is not afraid of her femininity. She is not pretending to be docile. She's not pretending to be some upright kind of person. This is who she is. The seduction part of that. And I can see some seduction parts. I'll be interested to see if seduction comes up in this meaning. I don't get a lot of seduction out of the Rider-Waite card. As a matter of fact, I get a lot of, well, the card is about fruitfulness and action and initiative, which is interesting because, I thought that, intuition was spelled out in the Night Sun card. So there's linking in, I think that there's in general some pretty decent linking in the meanings between these two particular cards. So that's kind of cool. Now let's finally take a look at the Sun, or excuse me, the Steampunk deck card. So the Empress promises abundance, which is something that was talked about here and really here too in the fruitfulness. She heralds a time of creativity. Here we go. There's another connection with the night sun. And no, creativity wasn't specifically, but action, which could be translated into creativity. With the Rider-Waite. Sorry, I think I was pointing at the wrong card here. You're encouraged to tap into this energy and use it to positive advantage in your life. However, there is something very important to keep in mind while considering the act of creation. Our Empress, our Mother Nature, may manifest ultimately as a calm pastoral scene, a charming field, a lush garden, but these soul-restoring environments were built on endless births and deaths. That, to me, talks about cycles. That talks about circles, which could have our connection to the circle pillow that we do see in each one. I like that. I like what we're doing here. The process isn't always pretty. A baby may be born, a painting may emerge from a canvas, or a story may be told. It all comes from the heart of your creative being. As it fights its way into this world, expect a little bit of a mess. Interesting. Very interesting. I like the commonality that we see in these three cards. I like how this makes me feel good about the process that I'm going through and wanted to kind of establish for comparing different decks to see, you know, how they kind of flesh out. I really think that between these three decks, these three cards are very much in alignment with their meaning from one deck to another. And I like that. So I think that's a really great note to kind of take from this particular video, is that our three Empresses, while they might have some differences, they have a lot of similarities, and ultimately that's kind of groovy to me. So that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it or learned something from it, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. We like to have you come back to the channel here. There will be lots of links in that description box. As I said, I will link each of these decks if you're interested in purchasing any of them. And there's also social media links in that box as well. What is your favorite deck? What does your Empress say? Does that deck kind of fall in, or your personal experiences with your Empress card? Do they fall into this creativity and abundance and seduction that we saw in these three cards? I'd love to know about it. Yeah, and that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and thanks for taking the time to walk the path for a little while with me. Until next time, blessed be. There's me waving.